Rolling and good morning, everybody. Open episode of the RINO Podcast. It is warm and sort of sunny outside. How are you, Kaitlin? Good morning.
Doing pretty good. It's gorgeous outside. We're having a good week of weather, and it's getting closer to summer. But wear sunscreen, everybody. Wear sunscreen.
Yes, apparently you said Asian sunscreens are better than American sunscreens.
It's just miles. They're light years ahead.
Why?
Okay, I will give you my 1 minute spiel on this. Okay, so the way that sunscreens are regulated in the United States is that they are a drug, not a cosmetic. And so the way that they treat them is that it is a drug, so it's heavily regulated. They only approve so many UV filters in the United States while they allow others to be sold here. Okay, so there's a clear difference here. So American manufacturers of sunscreen can only use, I think, I forgot what the number is, but it's like 15 UV filters in their sunscreen. So there's like the chemical ones that you see that have like aviobenzate, all those, and then you see like zinc oxide and titanium dioxide, the mineral ones. Okay. In Asia and in Europe, even in Europe has a lot of UV filters that we cannot use. They just regulate these differently. And so they have so many more. So over the years, the way that they have formulated their products are a lot better, and they lay better, and they're thinner, but they provide the still high UV factor.
So you can, because United States allows, we sell those foreign sunscreens here, but we don't allow U.S. sunscreen manufacturers to make it the same way.
So let me give you an example. One of my favorite Asian sunscreens is by Biore, which manufactures products for the American market. They're not allowed to manufacture that Japanese sunscreen here in the United States, but you can sell it. Yeah.
Crazy.
It is. It's nuts.
This is what we talk about when we say.
This is the problem with the FDA, actually, guys.
This is when we say deregulation is good.
Well, it's not even deregulation. They need to look at the way that they look at drugs and cosmetics. It would take an act of Congress for this to happen, but there's no political will, so it won't happen for a long time.
All right. Well, follow Kaitlin on social media to get sunscreen tips and watch her reviews. Follow her on Instagram for her to do all her in-depth product reviews, as does Gwyneth Paltrow.
And my buddy Gwyneth, love you, girl.
All right. So we are going to talk about what everybody's talking about, whether you like it or not, liberals. This is what people are talking about, and what they're going to vote on in November is the staggering amount of inflation taking place. I went to fill up my car, and I should have filled it up earlier in the week, Kaitlin. I went by.
I actually made the same mistake yesterday.
Tuesday, I went by. It was like 4:43. I had half a tank. I'm like, all right, I'll do it later. Thursday, a little over a quarter of a tank. 4:50. Okay. Yesterday, I'm driving around, and I'm like, crap, I need gas. I drive by. It jumped up 50 cents from earlier in the week. And then I go by, and they're said, out of gas. Ooh. So I go to the other gas station, and I pay.
This 1978?
Yeah. Well, it is. It's fucking 1978. It's fucking 1978, except worse. And less competence at the federal government. And we are fucked. I said this on Facebook, a Facebook memory popped up of a comfortably smug tweet, and look, and it was about, basically the gist of it was look how much damage he has done in 6 months, and this was last year. 6 months has happened, and I'm like, it's only going to get worse. It's only gotten worse since a year ago. It's only going to get worse.
It really, yeah. No, I mean
We're fucked.
it's bad. It's bad. I was in Hamilton last night and I filled up and it was $4.95. I've never so in Jeff, I think in California, I think that was like the highest amount I've ever paid for gas when I had to rent a car out there. And that was the highest. Here, I've never unleaded, like the lowest one that you can buy. We've never gotten close to $5 a gallon.
At what point? And I'm genuinely curious about this. At what point does this cause ripple effect shortages? Because at what point do people stop buying?
Well, we're going to have that with diesel. Like that's right. The thing. They've been diesel's
been a solid $2 ahead, $2 higher than.
We're going to have that on the East Coast with diesel, and that's really bad, guys, because diesel goes into a lot of tractors that does a lot of stuff for our agriculture. I mean, like people don't really understand the ripple effects of this. Like if we have a diesel shortage, we're going to have a hard time growing and producing food. And so
I want to warn people with this. This is like, you don't think, you're like, oh, that could never happen in America. Food shortage. Pfft, come on. Who are you talking about? Well, it's not hard to imagine, right? People can't afford. It's not like you can just pass through the cost of fuel. In order to have a robust, thriving economy, you need cheap, abundant energy, which we don't have right now. So it is not hard to think that we could have a severe situation because the cost of energy is so high. It's like, yeah, sure, we have farmland, we have tons of it, but if you're not able to grow the food that you need, it's going to have shortages.
And we're not replacing the base load. Like, I think we need to be honest about that, right? Like, so this is a physics question with when you get into like diesels, energy producers, and all of that, right? So when you put gas in your car, that's what's the base load that will propel your car forward when you hit the gas. If we're not replacing diesel or like coming up with new innovation in order to replace this, we're going to have problems. Renewables, not doing it. There's no gas powered tractors that are going to be going out and helping on our farms. Like, these farmers don't have that equipment. They don't have that technology yet. And you're leaving them out to dry. You're pushing the price of food and products that we need because diesel is more expensive. So like we're talking about inflation here, there's many parts of that, many parts of the cost of a product that's going to happen. If diesel goes up, that means the cost of a product that is going to have to be produced with diesel or some type of component with it, it's going to go up as well. So don't talk to me about caring about inflation, what's happening with the poor people and all of this other stuff, because they're getting the brunt of it, right?
Yeah.
It's not your Peloton, Lululemon liberal wine mom who has her husband's money to sit on. It's going to be poor people who are going to be, it's going to be poor people that have to deal with this.
They're going to feel it the hardest. The poor people are obviously going to feel it the hardest because, but keep in mind now, this is all a very tenuous situation. Your Lululemon liberal wine mom is going to start feeling it too. And I don't mean like their favorite
and they're going to lack self-awareness. I just want to prepare you for this now. They will lack self-awareness because they don't know. Okay. I deal with these women all the time. Okay. They lack self-awareness. They don't understand that it is the actions of the Biden administration that is making this difficult on everyone. When they refuse to sign big oil leases, like the one in Alaska that last week that they decided not sign, that's what's driving these costs. Yep. And so, when we talk about, well, Biden's not at fault for the gas situation. Yes, he fucking is. Yes, he is.
Yep.
Because they have the power to sign these leases.
And him alone.
Yes, he has a Department of Interior. Like, they have, it is just so detrimental to our national security, Jeff. On top of that, like, it's just, there's more ripple effects.
Yeah, we're not going to, forget about the fact that we pumped $2 trillion of COVID stimulus into the economy.
And we
did not have we printed that money. Okay. So that's still.
We talked about that in March. We were like, inflation is going to, in March 2021, you and I talked about this going to push inflation, because if you take a lot of fiat and you print it and you put it into the economy, you're going to create demand. And if you don't have the supply chains behind them in order to keep those products, like the prices level, they're going to skyrocket.
And that's exactly what happened, because one, we didn't have, we printed $2 trillion. So we have the monetary impact of inflation. Now, when they call it transitory, right? It's like, well, prices go up because there's a crunch of supply of fuel. So fuel prices go up, you pass that on. That's inflation also. But now you have this double whammy. And it's all policy driven by progressives. And I mean, it's a real shame, because you have these, I mean, what bothers me, I've said this so many times, we're governed by our intellectual inferiors. These people have never run anything in their lives. They just go to universities and cocktail parties and repeat the same regurgitated talking points to each other.
Biden graduated at the bottom of his law school class at Syracuse. The bottom.
But they've never run anything. They don't know how anything operates. They just puke back up stupid talking points to each other. And we're left to deal with the ramifications. And I say, we're governed by our intellectual inferiors, because we are. But the fact is, in blue states, we can't beat them, because our party infrastructure and the people we surround ourselves with also buy into this. So what does that say about us? I mean, granted, a lot of people sane people have left for normal thinking pastures of South and better run red states. But
I do have to say, Jeff, there's one candidate on the GOP side that is talking about gas prices surging and inflation, and he's running for governor, and his name is Chris Doty.
Yep. I think that hitting that message will hit home. It's going to hit home throughout the summer. And there was I was watching.
He's done a great job sending out literature. He stays on message. He's driving the point home. He's doing a great job with it.
I was trying to catch the weather report. I know I can get the weather on my phone, but I wanted to kind of see the radar and what the meteorologist was. So I was watching TV last night, and I flipped over to Channel 7, which Channel 7 is a weird thing. It's WHDH in Boston. And it used to be NBC 6 years ago.
And you're Gen X, so you still watch the weather on.
I did. My phone wasn't giving me complete information.
I'm just pulling your leg.
Yeah, I love.
We'll take coffee.
Just a quick aside. David Gergen, I think, tweeted out something like, "It's time for baby boomers to step aside and for millennials and Gen Z to take over." I was like, "Motherfucker!" He just skipped over a goddamn Gen X.
You
as usual. We've been erased. Yeah, but we will not go gently into that good night. Anyway, back to what I'm watching Channel 7, and it's basically become like just a local news cable TV. They just repeat the same local news, over hour after hour, and then Family Feud and Steve Harvey shows, a bunch of syndicated stuff. So they go to a local reporter who covers the pro-abortion rally on the Boston Common. I mean, and now you're getting into the lefty of the lefty. And Ed Markey's there, and Maura Healey's there, and they're all screaming from the microphone at the bandstand. Absolute insanity. And Maura Healey's out there, and these folks, I mean, they're in their own little bubble where they think they're going to run on Roe versus Wade in Massachusetts in the year 2022, and they are mistaken. Now, I know a lot of libs watch this show, and you should pay attention and start. Here's the thing. There's no good way for them to get around this. They have to go against their party, and they want to it's going to be a battle of messaging, and they're going to try to scare people with abortion, which isn't going to work because the kooky stuff they're pushing for is way too out there. And they can't talk about inflation because their side of the aisle is responsible for it. They can't talk about the economy because their side of the aisle is responsible for it. So the Republican nominee for governor this year will have a good shot at winning.
I think that if they have the good campaign infrastructure, they stay aggressive on messaging.
Disciplined, but disciplined
message. Yeah, disciplined. Chris Doty has been disciplined in messaging. That's all I'll say. His competitors have not, and
they want to get an invite to Mar-a-Lago.
Well, okay. Anyway, anyway, so yeah, I mean, like it in Massachusetts right now. Yesterday in Hamilton, Massachusetts, I had to pay almost $5 a gallon for gas, and then I drove through Beverly, and I saw the same there. It's one of those things, Jeff, where it's like there's got to be a straw that breaks the camel's back. Like when you hear Maura Healey talk about climate change and oil companies and all this other stuff, and it's like I think the back of the time when I went through the Berkshires and I went to these really blue collar areas, and I think about those areas and those working class jobs, and I think about people who have to do like actual labor work and how much they get paid by the hour. One gas tank fill up, if it goes up to there, depending on what your gas tank is going to be a part of your day's salary for the week. Mm-hmm. And I don't think Maura Healey can relate to that. I don't think she knows how to message that.
Nope.
So I think the Republican candidate who can put that into simple terms and say that to the electorate, Massachusetts, it's going to hit hard. I just don't think that Maura Healey, I guess how can I say this? I've always called her Massachusetts Hillary Clinton because I don't think that I can't emotionally relate to her at all. And I don't think that I think she's kind of like a robot, but I mean,
yeah, she's not. This is the one thing we're kind of lucky to have that the last good candidate who was good, like could really like seemed seemed normal and could relate from coming out of Massachusetts on statewide or even a decent congressional candidate is Deval Patrick.
Yeah.
Maura Healey's not a good candidate. Like, she's.
I mean, like, look at all the people that come out of Massachusetts. Like, I mean, like, Dems like really benefit from just having like the power of incumbency and so many Democrats in the state and even indies that will vote for him. When you see like Jake Auchinlaw, I can't even pronounce his last name. I don't give a shit. Sorry. I don't care. When you like hear him talking on MSNBC and he's going off crazy shit about Trump and Russia, and then like when you see Joe Kennedy, he seems like so fake. I mean, like
I'd say right. There's not many of them. They have the luxury of just winning the primary and then having to float to the general election.
And I've detailed my issues with Seth Moulton many times on Twitter, so you all know that my big issue.
He's not as good as Deval Patrick, but he's better than the rest of them because he's sort of he has a foot in the water of what normal is supposed to sound like, so he can.
Sometimes I think sometimes he goes a little too off the deep end. Like when he talked about Kentucky and COVID, like when COVID was like really happening in summer 2020, I called his office and he refused to call me back. And this has happened probably 3 or 4 times now, where when I called them for a call back from my congressman, Seth Moulton's staffers always call me back. He has refused to. I have specifically asked for him to call me personally, and he will not do it.
So, well, regardless of this, I think this is just going to get worse. I mean, it
is going to get worse. Like, Jeff, we're like it's May. We're going into summer. Gas always goes up every summer. Like we see Biden, refusing to sign gas leases. Russia, Ukraine is not getting any better. that's going to cause a lot more issues in like the Middle East and Africa that a lot of people refuse to acknowledge. And then that means that we're probably going to have to step up as a country.
Mm-hmm.
And then everyone's going to get mad that we spend money on that. And like, it's, well, there's not a lot of leadership from the Biden administration. That there needs to be a lot more protective of the country in general leadership that is not happening. So like when you see Trump say stuff like America first resonates with people because you're starting to put our country and our people first before everyone else. I think that's what even Dems want. But Biden doesn't do this. I think he plays off this old, I mean, I don't even know what Biden's doing anymore. Like he never makes any sense. So it's hard. I mean, we're in for it hard. And when I hear from banks that we might be going into recession in 2023, I mean, we have one more quarter where if we have negative growth, we're in a recession.
Here's the problem. And I don't want to be Debbie Downer. Look, I'm never going to be, and I mean this, never. I'm never going to root for economic downturn that would benefit politically, because the economic downturn affects me personally, right? So, but it's unavoidable, because what you need when you have an economy that expands too hot and you pump fiat into it, and it's just it's overheating, which is what's happening now, which is when you get inflation. You got to pull that back. So there's a couple things that need to happen. One of them, which won't, you need to cut spending, raise interest rates to pull.
Which they're not cutting spending.
Mm-hmm. They are raising interest rates, which is bad idea when you're still spending way too much, because now the amount of debt or the dollar amount of the debt you're servicing goes way up. And so we won't cut spending. Inflation will continue because of that spending. Interest rates will go up, so money becomes tighter in terms of loans and growth from that perspective. So you'll see people not growing their businesses and shrinking their businesses, which means layoffs and unemployment. We're looking at a real, stagflation. It's not going to be pretty.
And they're not getting supply chains in order. That's like another thing that they're not getting in order. I mean, like the ports out in Long Beach, any other port on the East Coast, there's billions of boats. They're not getting them in order. I don't think people are applying for jobs at the shipyards anymore. I mean, like it's bad. It's going to be bad.
Yeah. And we are being lied to. And I'm going to show everybody who's lying to us. And it's coming right from the top, from Joe Biden 2 days ago. You want to bring down inflation? ? Let's make sure the wealthiest corporations pay their fair share.
That is literally, okay. Oh, God. I am...
That's cool. Hey. That's what's causing inflation.
First, no one in the White House knows what the fuck they're talking about. And that needs to be said, because if he tweeted that, and trust me, Joe Biden himself didn't tweet that. That was a staffer who tweeted that.
Yep.
Because it's a policy talking point. It's not whatever. What brings down inflation, we've talked about this, getting your supply chains in order, rate hikes, all of these other things that they can do to get this in order. And it will take time, and it will be economically painful. I think everyone needs to. Mm-hmm. That's the thing. Ronald Reagan was honest about that, right?
Yep.
Like in 1980, he was on in 1979. He was honest about that. He was very honest about it. He's like, the solution to this problem is going to be painful, and you're going to have to get through it with us, because this is the United States. We need to make it better.
And I think that'll come around again. It won't come from the Democrats, because they don't know. They only know how to lie about what's going on and yell.
Well, they just don't know.
They also don't know. Yeah.
They also just don't know. I mean, like they do know. They do know, and it doesn't conform. I think there is some people who do know, and it doesn't conform to what their policies are. And so there are some smarter devs out there. I'll say it.
I would say, yeah, if Christina Pashaw
Not
is watching this, that would be, I'd say, the primer that, in 2023, you start to lay the groundwork for, because we're going to have to do it. We're going to have to cut spending, raise interest rates, get inflation under control. But here's the thing that's different than 1980. And this is we'll call it Jeff's theory of the modern economy. Okay.
Okay, here we go.
And I thought about this. I mean this. I've never written it down, but I've noodled it. So I have a good business brain. If you look at all the recessions, depressions over time in the modern industrial era, even pre-industrial, you have a period of rapid expansion and increase in the supply of any product. Okay, going back to the Great Depression, they overproduced the Model T, right? So they had huge inventories, right? Because they couldn't gauge what the demand was for their product. Over time, as communication has improved, as we are more interconnected, that aspect of it isn't as much. So it becomes more of government intervention, money supply. End of World War II. We had a booming economy coming out of the 50s, right? But why do we have a booming economy? Well, largely because the economies of the world were in shambles, right? So there's different aspects that kind of generation, decade after decade, take effect. But I think in the past 30 years, if we experience recessions, I think they will be a lot shorter, because the communication and availability of information to sort of reset and get to the point where you can initiate growth again can be much faster. So instead of these, if you look at the camera here, Kaitlin, instead of these big swings of decline and growth, I think the wave will sort of even out. So there's small ripples, and because the communication and information we have available of all the varying factors that impact recession or growth are much more better known, and we find them out a lot quicker, so people can make decisions accordingly. That is my theory of modern economic recession. Okay, sorry to bore everybody for that. Thank you for indulging me. But we are still being lied to by Joe Biden.
We're getting lied to so badly that Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos are starting to dunk on Biden online.
So let's bring up billionaire Bezos first. On top of Joe Biden's May 13th tweet, later that evening, Jeff Bezos, billionaire, owner of the Washington Post and Amazon, said, the newly created disinformation board should review this tweet, or maybe they need to form a new non sequitur board instead. Raising corporate taxes is fine to discuss. Taming inflation is critical to discuss. Mushing them together is just misdirection. That's pretty bold from somebody who's a lib, right? Jeff Bezos at least pretends to be.
Solidly a lib. Jeff Bezos is pretty solidly a lib. He owns the Washington Post, which I think is my big thing with that is like, dude, if you own the Washington Post, then why aren't they like fucking putting out that he has 4 Pinocchios here? Like, I mean, like, come on, like, direct the Washington Post to fact check Joe Biden more often, more than they're doing right now when they,
I think he's just, it's purely a defensive reflex, right?
I think he's pandering. I think that he sees that Elon Musk is more active on Twitter and he's gaining followers and support and he's buying Twitter, and Jeff Bezos is starting to get online and almost do the same thing that Elon Musk is doing. He's copying the shtick.
You think it's a pissing contest? Huh.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Like two dudes who are billionaires. Well, yeah.
That could be.
I think Elon Musk is close to a trillionaire now. So, right? He's the richest man in the world.
Well, that brings up the other thing. I think as of a few weeks ago with the stock market tanking, he's pulling back because I think he's like, oh man, I'm paying way too much for Twitter. Like he doesn't want to overpay now, right? Because maybe his overall valuation is taking a hit. I mean, yeah, we expect Elon at least, to pile on to Let's see. All right, so he goes, let's see. Earlier, was this yesterday? This was from yesterday. Elon Musk, whoever thought owning the libs would be cheap. Wait, whoever thought owning the libs would be cheap never tried to acquire a social media company. Exclamation mark. That's kind of funny. He's a funny guy. He's got a good sense of humor. The back and forth between, I think Bezos with the chiming in of higher corporate tax rates, is an opportunity for him to, flex his muscles, so to speak, about what his interests are, right? He doesn't obviously want taxes to go up, and it's for a liberal like him to push back against inflation and the blame of corporate tax, which again, Elizabeth Warren is on this thing. She's saying those greedy supermarkets and greedy corporations are responsible for inflation because their profits have increased. It's just so fundamentally dishonest. Do you? I mean, other than people inside their bubble, does anybody else buy it?
By what? That Jeff Bezos is being honest about these tweets?
No, I mean that the Biden line, by the liberal Dem line, that it's somehow corporations not paying taxes' fault. Who else besides the people that already believe it?
Nobody. I mean, this is the reason why Biden. I think this is one of the reasons why Biden's polling is so down. Right now, we just got polling from NBC that Biden's approval rating is at 39. That's the lowest it's been. And I think that this lying about inflation and stuff and him not addressing it in the appropriate way. I mean, look what he said: raise taxes because inflation is happening. What the fuck? That's not how, honestly, that's not how you combat it. That's never been a historical way where we've ever combated inflation.
You would think that his advisors...
We raised taxes on billionaires after World War II to pay for the war. That's what you're supposed to do. I get that in some respects because you have to be fiscally responsible. You have a fiduciary duty to your taxpayers in order to keep your government high and tight. Our current government in general has not done that since the George W. Bush administration, which needs to be said honestly. And so it's, one of those things where it's like, what the fuck are you talking about, Biden? This is the reason why your polling is such shit. And everyone in the White House is just,
you'd think,
I don't know, maybe the Emperor's Clothes story where he's walking around naked and they refuse to tell him. I don't know.
It's odd because they're probably too afraid to say anything.
I genuinely think it's an Emperor's New Clothes situation. I think it's a situation where they are refusing to tell him the obvious because of whatever reason, of whatever delusion. It's so hard to rationalize what they're doing, but then
well, they're not even acting in their own self-interest, which is odd because their long-term self-interest says
reelected.
Yeah, get reelected, do the things that will do the responsible things that would get you reelected, and they're not moving anywhere close to that. They're not, and they have the power to do that. They have the power to put in place the mechanisms and things that would eventually set themselves up by 2024, and they're just not. So they either don't know what they're doing, which is a very, very, very likely scenario that they lack the capacity to understand what they need to do to fix it. And when Republicans say, okay, you got to cut spending, you got to raise interest rates, you got to buckle down and do the things that are hard because you're paying for it, they may go, I don't know, racist, white supremacist. We're not doing that. And they just bury their head back in the sand. So...
Talking about inflation as white supremacy. Okay, cool. Thanks. I love paying, so much for goods. I love that I have to hear my friends talk about the baby formula situation also in this country. I hate having to pay $5 per gallon at the pump. What the fuck is your administration doing? You're supposed to overlook the executive branch. the FDA falls under the executive branch. You can absolutely handle the baby formula situation because the shutdown of the plant that's happening is over FDA inspections. So I don't know, maybe Congress, like Nancy Pelosi, should call in the FDA commissioner and have them answer questions. And you, as the president of the United States, should be calling up the FDA commissioner, figuring out what the fuck is going on. Like, I think that they're not doing this because they don't know what to do. I think that Biden has always been like this, and he's not surrounded by good people, and they don't know what to do either. So like right now, our federal government is running by people who are just mediocre, and they've been in government too long. They've never worked outside of government. So they don't understand that when you don't do your job, you could get fired.
Yeah.
Or there's performance in your job, so you should perform. Like there's so many things that are going on right now.
There's a great scene in the original Ghostbusters where Dan Aykroyd, and they're right before they start their company, the Ghostbusters company. Dan Aykroyd says to I think Harold Ramis, he's like, "I've worked in the private sector. They expect results because they just got fired from academia." I said this a little bit on the Patreon episode, patreon.com/RINOPod, $1 a month. If you're a non-progressive and you want to be involved in politics, if you're center or even on the right, you should have a real job and work politics as an activity on the side, because there's no substitute for it. And you're seeing that right now with the progressives in power. They don't know how to run anything. They've only just talked about, enacting justice and equality and equity, but they don't know how to do anything. And you're seeing that. You're seeing the results of that. They don't grasp how things run. So you have to experience that in life. After you leave school, you got to get a real job and produce something or provide a service for money. And just in that act, you will be vastly more qualified than any of the progressives in office right now. And we're just going to have to deal with that for the next couple of years till we can elect people that understand how the world operates. And
I do want to add that point, Jeff. The NBC News poll that I was talking about earlier, that was saying that Biden's approval rating is at 39. And, you can take these polls with a grain of salt and all of that jazz. I'm fine with it. But it says the direction of the country is on the wrong track, backed by 75%. 75. That's a staggering number. I think that could get up to 80.
Who the fuck are the 25? I mean, who thinks we're on the right track? Honestly,
the right direction part is 16%. It's actually less than 25.
Fucking morons! Oh my god, 16 is just like, it just goes to show. Yeah, they're on the. Who's in that bubble? God damn. All right.
I don't know what to say. Like, that's the thing. Like, I mean, like when you see polls like this and the nation is at 75% in the wrong direction, like we need a politician that can step up, that can say the obvious, like Ronald Reagan did in the late 70s. And it was like, this is going to be hard and our country's going to have to go through some struggle, but we are going to have to fix the economy.
Yeah. I'd like to close with the words of John McCain. And we just did a good episode on Steve Schmidt's meltdown on the Patreon, who said, "It's always darkest before it goes pitch black." John McCain. Well, he did say that.
He did say that.
Yeah. So, all right, folks. Next week we're out at convention. We're going to be hobbing and nobbing with our fellow Massachusetts Republicans. Say hello. Maybe we'll do a couple live spots from various locations right on the good old phone broadcast. We'll check in from time to time, but you will not get an official episode from this format. Anyway, hope you have a great week. Stay cool, stay dry, have fun, and try to, try to survive the disaster that is inflationary economics. Bye-bye.
Guys.